cover today? Okay, excellent. So this webinar will be recorded, so you'll be able to get back to it if you want to repeat anything. And with that, I just really want to say welcome, good morning to today's webinar, Main Street Management 101. My name is Kristen Lopez. I am the Senior Director of Programs here at Connecticut Main Street Center. And today's webinar is perfect for someone new to Main Street Management or just needing a refresher. Today, we're going to be going over the role of the Main Street Manager, the qualities of a vibrant downtown, and look at the 4-point approach to Main Street Management to really create that thriving downtown experience that we're all after for our own communities. So just a few words again. For those of you who are new to Connecticut Main Street Center, we are the expert resource for developing and sustaining vibrant downtowns and main streets that fuel our state's prosperity. It is our mission to assess, educate, and convene around the topics central to creating a thriving downtown so that main streets all around the state can develop, grow, and prosper. We are very grateful to our sponsors and funding partners that make this work possible. Connecticut Main Street Center's founding sponsors are Eversource and the State of Connecticut Department of Economic and Community Development. Additional funding comes from Webster Bank, Travelers, and Liberty Bank. And just a quick note about today's webinar, we have a lot of content to cover, and so we might run a little over our hour time slot. Maybe not, maybe we will. But we will stay on a little longer to get to any of your questions. So we're going to keep the questions to the end, but we'll stay after if we go over the allotted hour time. And also through each point, we're going to be watching a video of a community that really kind of illustrates that 4-point really well. And so we invite you to participate in the chat room when we get to that area. So be prepared to type away in the chat box. Okay, so let's get into the presentation. So we all know a great downtown when we see it. It's a feeling, an energy we can sense, experience. But sometimes it can be very hard to articulate what exactly makes a main street great. Here at Connecticut Main Street Center, we've really identified 6 qualities that make it a little bit easier to grasp. First, there's always a dedicated Main Street management model behind a great Main Street. Next, the Main Street is connected by multiple modes of transportation for people to access. It's a welcoming, friendly, and inclusive space to all people. And there are sustainable practices in place that bring life and vibrancy for today and for the future. Small businesses are supported and encouraged, but as well as development investment in housing development. And there is a unique sense of place. So how do we cultivate these qualities? The 4-point approach of Main Street Management is a very simple yet comprehensive proven framework that has been used across the country for decades. The 4 points, which you can see here in this inner circle, are organization, economic vitality, design, and promotion. This framework was developed in the late 1970s by the National Trust for Historic Preservation, and it was designed to address the neglect and demolition of the historic downtowns. This framework now has been adopted by thousands of communities across the country. And while every community and commercial district is different with its own distinctive assets, sense of place, local politics context, this 4-point approach really provides a practical and adaptable framework for downtown transformation that it really is tailored to local conditions. And so one thing to keep in mind when we go through all these 4 points, you may find yourself focused on one of the 4 points more than the others, because that's where the need is. And that's how it's adaptable so that you can just really meet the needs of your community as it is right now. Okay, so here's this framework, right? These 4 points of Main Street management. But what exactly do we mean when we say Main Street or downtown management? And what we essentially mean is that there is a dedicated entity or person who is the main champion and steward of their downtown. They are the convener, the main point of contact. They know everything that's going on. They have the pulse on it all. And we know that there are thousands of plans that are sitting on a shelf waiting to be implemented, great intentions, but are sitting on the shelf because there's not the capacity to execute them. Main Street management is all about the execution of those plans. Um, that is who is responsible for making those visions of those plans come to reality. And so, for example, right, you can have the cleanest, safest downtown, but if no one knows about it, or if you don't have events that draw people in, no one's going to know how clean your downtown is. You can have great events, but if the streets are dirty, littered, a bunch of vacancies, and boarded up buildings, no one's going to come back. Or maybe you have some really great local businesses, but they have odd hours. So when people go, they get the impression that all the businesses are always closed. So a Main Street manager is going to have an eye on all of these things and be working on all of them simultaneously to make sure that when people come to your downtown, it's a great experience. I also want to talk about the distinct role a Main Street manager has, especially in relation to an economic development role or a planning professional. So, the economic developer focuses on promoting economic growth and development within a specific region or municipality. They work to attract and retain businesses, stimulate job creation and workforce development to really kind of improve the overall town, right? Planners are concerned with the physical and spatial developments of the city. They create comprehensive plans for land use, transportation, housing, public spaces to ensure sustainable and organized development. And for a lot of our communities here in Connecticut, sometimes these roles are one and the same. But the Main Street manager is really a blend of these worlds that is really focused on a singular geographic commercial corridor. So while the economic developer has to care about the whole town, the Main Street manager may only be caring about a few blocks, right? But these few blocks are the heart and soul of the community, right? It's the living room of the community, and so they support a diverse local economy. They ensure that the built environment creates an inviting, inclusive atmosphere. They work on promoting and positioning the commercial corridor, and they secure resources for ongoing investment. Sometimes I think that we think that a Main Street manager is kind of like an event planner, that is their main focus. That is just one slice of what the Main Street manager could do. If we look at the most high performing Main Street programs kind of across the country, they are recruiting businesses, they are working with property owners to reinvest in their buildings, right? So we can get a lot more sophisticated. And that's what the 4 point approach really kind of shows us. And the work that these Main Street managers do have really tangible outcomes. In our annual Main Street assessment tool, we look at 83 different action items, and we have found that 100% of the downtowns that have a dedicated management entity scored satisfactory or higher versus the communities that did not have a dedicated management entity. Further, the National Main Street Center collects data across the country to calculate the return on investment with an active Main Street program. And in 2022, they found that for every dollar a community spends to support the operation of its Main Street program, it returned $24.07 of new investment from the public and private sector. So all this to say, Main Street management is a distinct discipline and has tangible benefits to the downtown and the community when it is implemented. Okay, so let's draw our attention back to the 4 points and look at them a little bit more closely. And I'm very excited to be joined by my colleague, Carl Rosa, our Field Services Director, to help us with breaking down each of these points. First up is organization. We're going to start here because this is really the bedrock for everything that we do on Main Street. An organization is really about engaging the community, convening and working towards consensus, creating plans, securing the financial resources you need to get the work done, working with volunteers, and spreading the good news about the work that you're doing. We've broken down organization into 10 distinct tactical areas, and I'm going to hand it over to Carl now to walk us through each of these areas.
Thank you, Kristen, and good morning, everyone. Yes, as Kristen was mentioning, of the 4 points of Main Street, of course, the first point that we look at is organization. And in these categories, it's very important that the Main Street manager, the champion for the downtown or the Main Street, take a look at these and work with these categories under this point. First one we look at is community stakeholder support, and that is really working on building the collective will of the community and all the stakeholders, particularly within your Main Street district, to help you out with the mission of your Main Street management and downtown revitalization. So stakeholder support involves support from volunteers. It involves support from the business owners, the building owners, the municipal officials, your public safety officials, and generally people within the community that agree with the mission about the efforts and the emphasis on doing something with your downtown and what that could mean for you as the manager, building this team of support that helps you out with your mission. I think we go on to public safety. And of course, I think the important part about this point under the organization category is working to ensure that your public safety officials understand that their role may not just be about enforcing the law and working on, keeping your district safe and secure, but also they are an integral part of the economic development direction of your downtown district and of your Main Street. So working with public safety officials is key. In fact, it should be a prerequisite that there's a representative from the police or public safety that participates in your program, in your management process, either your community relations police officers or someone within that department that understands the mission, understands the goals, and is working with you, your board of directors, your volunteers on public safety aspects of your downtown district. Certainly your board of directors. And I think it's important to cultivate and develop a board of directors that involves not only stakeholder representation, property owners and merchants, but also major stakeholders within your downtown district. It could be representatives from the banks or the hospital or the schools or municipal officials. So the goal should be on your board of directors that they are a representation of the stakeholders in the district and the community at large that are, number one, going to advocate for your organization. They certainly agree with the mission and the vision, but they're going to advocate for your organization, and they're going to ensure the fiscal integrity and strength of your organization. And I think one of the roles of the board of directors would be, certainly a very important role, would be to, in conjunction with the administration and your work as a Main Street manager, work on strategic planning. So a good strategic plan will have a definite timeline to it, whether it's 3 years or 5 years. It will involve major goals that you want to achieve for not only the organization, but also to see in your downtown and on your Main Street. We'll have specific tasks and be able to demonstrate measurement. How are we measuring that we achieve these goals? Okay, and it should be reviewed by the board with input from volunteers and members of the community as well. and then reviewed at least once a year to see if you're on the same track and everybody's in agreement with that. And from strategic planning leads specific work plans. And that's where the administration of the and the management of your Main Street comes in, because if you're trying to achieve these overreaching goals, you want to develop these work plans that are going to be specific to how to get there. Certainly, organization involves the administration, and that would be the manager or the director of the program, all of the administrative functions that go along with that, the financial, the fund development, the fundraising, the tying all the volunteers together, establishing, getting the message out on the work plan, planning the meetings, bringing the folks together to actually roll up the sleeves and do the work on Main Street. So the administration aspect falls under organization. And then certainly the next category is financial management. And that would be all of your, accounts payable and receivable, particularly if you're going to get involved with fundraising events and that kind of category. Monies are exchanged. So you want to make sure that you have a good financial management model in place with checks and balances, somebody to oversee it, third-party accounting, that's and also preparation of reporting for the board of directors to see how the organization is moving forward and how the funds are being dispersed. Certainly, funding is a key aspect under the organization category. Developing a good fund development strategy is very, very important, particularly if you're a 501c3 not-for-profit organization, okay? And there needs to be a good, effective layer of fund development in place. For example, you may get support from the municipality. They'll put some skin in the game, and particularly if you're a nonprofit, they'll put some funds into it. However, you also have to see if you can cultivate funding from the private sector, whether it's through fundraising events, private contributions and donations, sponsorships, merchandise sales, fees for service, contracting, and all of that kind of thing. You have to put other fund development in place to leverage with any support that the municipality is going to give you to manage your Main Street program. The next category is demonstrating impact. And this, as I travel around the state and visit with our member communities, is something that not enough of our communities are doing. Tracking the impact and the transformative impact that's occurring within your Main Street district, within your downtown, first of all, as a result of your Main Street program efforts. But even beyond that, any type of private investment, any type of public and private improvements in the district, property transactions, new businesses that have moved in or businesses that have moved out, also volunteer support, new employees that have been hired or brought into the district. All of that demonstrates impact to the district and should be tracked on a regular basis. And that's a key role for the Main Street manager, is to track all that and demonstrate that. By the way, that allows you to tell a really good story at the end of the year when you're preparing your annual report for your board and for public consumption. You can actually show, by tracking impact, how things have moved over the past year and then start comparing year to year. Certainly under the organization categories, messaging and outreach. That would be a newsletter, your social media, telling people about what's been happening in the district, telling people about what your organization has been doing. Certainly web updates, website updates, and web development, presentations. In my experience, hey, Carl, would you mind coming to this month's Rotary Club to give a report about what's happening in downtown? Can you come and talk to our chamber folks? Can you, give a presentation about what is your Main Street programming doing for our efforts? Okay, getting the word out, presenting through whatever media that you can use, press releases, newspaper coverage, radio, that all falls under the organization category, because you want to continue to let people know there's progress, things are happening. your organization is making an improvement and your organization is having an impact and an effect in your downtown and on your main street, you have to tell people about it. And then finally, volunteer coordination and volunteers. And this is critical because, it's not just about the money that you have to raise to help you administer and run the program and manage your main street, but it's about the human capital. Those people within the community and within downtown, the stakeholders that want to contribute their time and talents, roll up their sleeves and get to work on behalf of a better downtown and a better Main Street. By the way, not enough people are tracking volunteer hours. And I think it's very important that we all get in the habit of tracking volunteer hours. If you're on the board and you're a volunteer board member, that needs to be tracked. I mean, if you're having monthly board meetings and they're an hour and a half to 2 hours long and you have 10 or 12 people on your board, do the math, add up those hours for the year. If you have volunteers that are helping out with your event coordination and, at your events or helping out with specific projects throughout the year, by the way, projects and work plans that have come from your strategic planning and the volunteers are helping to support that, those hours need to be tracked. When you take a look at month to month and at the end of the year, and you've racked up hundreds of hours of volunteer support, that's very good leverage when you're trying to get additional funding to come into your program. In Connecticut, the average volunteer hour, if we were to put a value on it, would be about $27 an hour. There's a publication called Independent Sector that puts a value on all of the volunteer hours per state in the United States. And in Connecticut, the last I checked, it was about $27 an hour. So calculate, do the math, look at the overall volunteer hours expended for improvement in your downtown. And if you were to have to put a value on it, you can see how much of an impact that would have in your efforts. So from the organization point, these points right here, these categories are typically what a Main Street manager would get involved in to help run the program and administer the program.
Excellent. Thanks, Carl. And, the point of this webinar is to kind of give a taste of all these activities that the Main Street manager has to kind of have their pulse on. But of course, we're here to go more in depth one-on-one through Carl's field services, technical assistance as members. So now to see this organization point action, let's watch a short video from Metuchen, New Jersey. They received the Great American Main Street Award winner in 2023. And let's see what kind of themes you hear through their work.
If I had to summarize our work in the fewest words possible, it would be welcoming, walkable, inclusive. That's what we set out to do 6 years ago, and that's what we've delivered on in Metuchen.
We moved here because it seemed like a really great environment to raise a kid in. Great public school, something smaller, something near a train, and Metuchen just kept coming up to the top of the list.
Everybody wants to be part of something that has a story, and I think Metuchen affords you that.
We were made by the railroad because people could work in New York City and live here. It really was the place to be in its time, and fairly, it's the place to be today. The more recent history of Metuchen is, especially in the last 30 years, is it really had a dip. Businesses were like revolving doors. They'd open and they'd close and no one knew what to do about it. So what happened is 2 members of the Borough Council, Allison and Sarah and Jay Muldoon, came together and said, look, what can we do here?
And the more that we learned about Main Street and the 4 points approach, we said, that's what we need to do.
One of the reasons why Metuchen has been so successful is that they have a strategic plan that they use very closely to help guide their actions and where they're going to focus their resources.
So we're going to build downtown housing by our train station, and we're going to also set up a Main Street program. But they said Main Street wasn't enough. We need a Main Street program and also stable funding. So they established what we call a SID, a Special Improvement District. And with that stable funding, but also the passion of the volunteers and the Main Street approach, that was the formula for revitalizing the town. And sure enough, we've seen over 387 apartments, $170 million of investment, and 150 business starts in the last 6 years.
You could almost get emotional thinking about the work that these people put into this town. There are many volunteers that put these events together, that work with the businesses to ensure their success. These things don't just happen. They happen because people are so dedicated to this place.
We want to be able to have access to programming that folks would not otherwise get a chance to see for free. Whether it be wrestling, big movie nights, step dancers, Lunar New Year dragon dancing, all of those things help people to kind of see and get access to things as a third place.
During the pandemic, without the MDA, I can't imagine. We hardly lost any businesses, and we had businesses opening towards the latter part of the pandemic, so it's remarkable.
During the pandemic, 75% of the businesses that have opened have been minority and women-owned. I'm also proud that over 60% of the grants that we've given out have gone to women and minority-owned businesses.
My business, Creative Twist, is all about events. Without the MDA's like grants and help and just even ideas, you know, and support, there's no way we could have done it.
They've worked very hard at creating an atmosphere where all different kinds of businesses can feel welcome and feel like it's a possibility to open and be successful here.
When you come here, you see that, hey, this is an area where there's equity, where there's room for a lot of different people to participate, and they have the tools to even thrive.
We really wanted to make sure that we took steps, aggressive steps, to help ensure the survival of these businesses.
We had restaurants cooking meals that were then delivered to people in need. So without the MDA, that wouldn't have happened.
And basically the way it works is we match up existing restaurants with people who may be living in a shelter or other places where they have need, and we deliver those meals every week. And really the heart of the program is this, you know, with food comes dignity, and when we can extend that to the people who need it the most, while also helping our businesses stay open and remain in town, you know, that's the kind of win-win opportunity you don't get often in life. It used to be a business opened, you know, maybe it found its customers in its market, maybe it didn't, and then it closed 6 months later. But with the MDA and use of the Main Street approach, we were able to get what the businesses needed, when they needed it, where they needed it, so they could be successful. And that's what's made Metuchen stand out from just about every place else.
Excellent. I love that video. And so I want to hear from you. What are the things that you heard discussed in this video out of the organization kind of subcategories? What did you hear? Type in your thoughts in the chat. And as you're writing your thoughts, Debbie, your question, do we have templates for tracking these documents? Yeah, we have some resources. We're always developing new resources, but we're happy to work with you and help you get what you need. Okay, well, to move along, there are a lot of themes that came up here. Of course, the community stakeholder support. We saw, municipal leaders getting emotional about the work of their downtown association. They had a strong board of directors, volunteers, a strategic plan that followed everything. They had a full-time dedicated administration, and they had funding. And so just one quick note on this, if you didn't hear this, Metuchen, New Jersey has a special services district or a special improvement district or a business improvement district. They're all kind of the same kind of thing. And they follow a Main Street program. So you can have a bid that has the tax from the property owners coming in as sustainable funding, but you can also have a 501c3 that can do outside fundraising and follow the Main Street management approach. So both of them can live together. Sometimes people think it's one or the other, but the most successful programs have both of those. And seeing in the chat, the themes of equity, welcoming, inclusive, absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, let's move on to our next point, which is economic vitality. And this is all about diversifying the economic base of your district. And we've broken this down into 8 distinct areas. And so, Carl, walk us through it.
Okay, so I think that the important thing when you're getting started understanding the economic vitality of your downtown is to have good tools to work with. And that would include getting good data. So when we say district knowledge and data, we're talking about what's the building stock in your downtown? What's the available commercial space? Doing the inventories that you're going to update on a regular basis to let you know what you have to work with. What do you have a business listing of all the businesses in your district? Have you done a listing of an inventory of all the parking options? Just the infrastructure data and all of the listings of businesses, all that, you need to have these updated and maintained on a regular basis. These are your basic tools, what you're working with. And it also includes historic preservation, because many of the buildings that reside within your downtown district are historic in nature, and they might have specific projects that go with them. For example, mixed use, or any time that you want to work with historic buildings and change their use, there's certain protocols and work that you have to do within that realm to work with State Historic Preservation Office, your local economic development folks, wherever the funding sources are going to be. But you should have a good handle on and a list of all the historic buildings, landmarks, and spaces within your downtown, because of the fact that they will carry with them, not necessarily certain restrictions, but I would say opportunities. For example, you might be able to apply for state historic, federal, and federal tax credits if you want to do any work to any of the historic buildings and change their usage, particularly mixed-use development. That leads us to the housing aspect. You should have a handle on all of the residents, the amount of residents that live within your downtown district. You should have some good demographic and compile some good demographic information, the types of residents that are living in your downtown, young professionals, elderly people, the types of categories of housing that are downtown, whether it's market rate, whether it's affordable, whether it's working class, Section 8, whatever it is, that you should at least have an inventory and know what you're working with and know who the residents are. Residents in your downtown are an economic force for your downtown. They spend money in your downtown. Vacant storefronts and lots. You should have a list of all the vacant storefronts and all the commercial available spaces, and you should have a plan on what to do with those vacant storefronts while they're waiting to be leased out. Something that might showcase available vacant space to people that might be prospective merchants that might want to move in there. You should also understand if you have any vacant lots, is there a plan in place? Is there a development plan in place to program? And if so, how long is that going to take? Because there might be ways to program those lots, as you see in these photos, with activity, art, food trucks, maybe even temporary parking while the lots are under development. So, but you should have a handle on what they are. If you're fortunate enough, you have no vacant lots, then it's not an issue. But in many cases, they are there, and you should know what the plan is for them. Effective downtown management includes effective relationships with property owner engagement, and also understanding the types of businesses that you would like to recruit coming into your downtown. So there needs to be maybe a wish list established of the type of businesses that you'd like to put in your vacant spaces, and there needs to be some good property owner and building owner engagement to let them know what the plans are, what you'd like to see. Important to know what would be a good business to put between the coffee shop and the shoe store? What would be a good business to put between the restaurant and the hardware store? So smart programming, a wish list, things that you'd like to see in your downtown. These are all things that need to be coordinated by the Main Street manager. And of course, working with your economic development officials on attracting development, programming that can get building space ready for development or for businesses to move in, or making sure that as you're tracking the space and the available space, that you're sharing that information with all your economic officials, with the real estate folks and the property owners and business and building owners, to let them know that you're tracking their space and you want to market it and move it ahead. And then, of course, small business support, an ecosystem of small business support. So this is very important because your existing businesses, they want to succeed. You want them to succeed. And sometimes it's important to hold periodic workshops and business improvement sessions that help them with how to keep their business secure, how to transition their business with online sales, how to market, what to do with social media. You'll be surprised that a lot of businesses don't necessarily get involved in that, but it's important because they could succeed and not necessarily rely solely on foot traffic. Also things like, how to improve their sales, how to pivot to another type of business product that might help them with their sales. All of this are things that good window displays, window displays are the first line of marketing, that is part of what they can visually show to the public. All of these are things that you can provide or lead them to resources for small business support and help.
Thanks, Carl. And just a couple of notes here. So we actually have a very extensive kind of toolkit on collecting district inventories. So if you are a member and you really want to engage in collecting your downtown inventories, let us know, reach out to us, and we can send you that information. And also just a point about housing, in addition to knowing the housing stock that you have as a Main Street manager, you really care about your housing density. Especially, the pandemic really showed us that the commercial corridors that had residential units close to the downtowns, those downtowns survived. It was the ones that did not have that kind of housing stock, the residents living there, that really struggled and are continuing to struggle. So just wanted to underscore that point as well.
Kristen, one other
yes.
quick demographic to get a handle on is who's working in your downtown.
Yeah.
The employee base.
Yeah.
Those are also have an impact on economic development as well. They spend money, as does the residents. So
that's a great point. And we need to know this information so that the strategic plan that we create and the work plan that we follow, actually resonates with the reality we're working in. And that's why we really need a strong basis of knowing who is in our downtown and what do we have here and what are our existing assets. And that really dovetails with our promotion point that we'll get to in a little bit. So I want to play our next video. This is from Macon, Georgia, and they're doing a great job. I really encourage you to go to their website. They have a lot of great programming going on. But let's hear how their take on economic vitality.
When I think about Macon, they're not just ticking the boxes, they are blowing the framework to smithereens.
Grew up in Macon. When I was real young, it was thriving. And then shortly after I got to my teen years, it began to slowly decline.
Just like pretty much all of America, suburbia really flourished and malls became a thing and people left downtown.
It was really like a ghost town. Buildings were looking like they had been sitting empty for decades because they had.
It wasn't really a nice place to walk around. Definitely not when it got dark.
My mother's very plain spoken, and she said, downtown is dead. We've got to do something about it.
Newtown was founded in 1996 as a downtown development organization, and our Main Street program was founded in 2011. But in 2018, we had an opportunity to move Main Street to Newtown, and I really feel like that's one of the things that makes Newtown unique, is that we are incredibly well-resourced. We are fortunate that downtown was not a victim of urban renewal, that our buildings actually stayed here. I'm proud to say that Macon has used more historic tax credits and has had more historic tax credit projects than any other community in the nation.
Macon is really where it's at when we're talking about preservation.
That's what makes us who we are.
In 1996, storefront occupancy was about 30%. Today, we're experiencing about 83% storefront occupancies.
Unfortunately, the building is torn down right now, but it was used to be called the Joseph M. Neals building. I looked at that building as a little small girl and I said, I'm gonna buy that building when I get grown. And who knew I would end up buying the building across the street from it.
Macon's demographics is about 50% Black and 50% white, and that is not what our business demographics looked like a few years ago or still today, but it's something we've made significant strides in.
We grow from within, and we've made a very intentional effort in the last several years through Newtown to make sure we provided funding and opportunities for people, getting these businesses going through training to make sure that people know how to run a business and how to buy properties and how they can participate.
Our CDFI has issued 16 loans to Black entrepreneurs and 30 loans to women-owned businesses.
Someone like myself, I didn't have $2 million in the bank to just write a check. We were able to do everything that we needed to do because of Newtown's full support. It was really, really great when the project was finished.
Last year, Macon had $44 million of private-public investment.
Hotel 45 is a 94-room boutique hotel. It was all ready to go right when COVID happened, and the main financer backed out of the project, and it really was Maconites stepping up to the plate, our local government, as well as the Peyton Anderson Foundation in Newtown, saying we've got to save this project.
You get the vibe of what it was, and it's really stayed true to that. It is my hands-down favorite place to stay in the state.
We have been able to invest in over 700 lofts in downtown Macon, and now we have over 1,000 residents and about as many dogs in downtown Macon, all walking and filling our streets and enjoying all of our wonderful downtown businesses.
The traffic is so important for any new business. Even if you have something that's completely new to the market, you're going to get some initial foot traffic, you're going to get some interest, and from that initial interest, you can grow.
They've done an incredible job with lighting, accessibility, landscaping, pedestrian pathways.
There is so much to be excited about and to explore and do in Macon, and we just really need to figure out a way to hype up Macon, and that was how the Hype team was born.
When people see that folks are excited and energized and engaged in what's going here, they want to be a part of it too. I hope that there's a little girl right now that's walking downtown and she sees this building and she says, I can do it too, because I did it, and we're so proud of this work.
Macon is doing great work with supporting their small businesses. What are some of the takeaways that you heard from this video of all the different kind of subcategories of economic vitality? I know I heard a lot. Historic preservation they're on top of. They talked about housing and getting people downtown, living downtown. Their plans for the vacant storefronts, really creating a lot of great financial incentive programs with their CDFI to get local business ownership of those vacant buildings. Of course, attracting development like that hotel and of course all their small business support. Again, really recommend that you check out their website. They're doing a lot of really great things. And at the end of that video, they mentioned their Hype team that they have, which is a really cool local ambassador program. And if you're interested in doing that in your community, let us know. We can send you that information. Transportation was obvious by its absence. They didn't talk about transportation in this one. That's correct. But they got a lot of other great things going on for sure. Let's move on to our next point. And just looking at the time, we will be going over a little bit, so please stay on though. But we will have this recorded. So if you have to jump off, you can catch the rest of the presentation. So next up is design, and design is maybe the easiest point to understand because it's really all things visual in your downtown. And we really see design kind of broken into 10 subcategories. And to lead us through these, Carl.
Okay. Certainly, all the physical characteristics of your downtown district and the fact that you want it to be walkable. So walkability is huge. And part of walkability would be your sidewalks, your crosswalks, sidewalk conditions, smooth and even, not cracked or heaved, good sidewalk furniture, creating that effort for walkability, and also crosswalks. And crosswalks are important because not only do you need really good signalization, but they need to be ADA compliant. And, mid-block crosswalks are helpful as well, because sometimes if you have a long sidewalk and you'd have to walk all the way to the end of the district to be able to cross to get to the businesses on the other side of the street because there's not enough mid-block crosswalks. I know that sometimes might be a challenge for downtowns that have state roads running through them, but we do take a look at that, and it is important that you see if you can make those connections. So sidewalks and crosswalks. Certainly the conditions of your building facades and your storefronts, and a lot of that might be relative to the historic preservation of the buildings in your downtown district. But the design care function also looks at ways to make sure that your facades are in great condition. So a lot of times as a Main Street manager, you'll promote building facade improvement funds and a process that helps restore it and upgrade your signage, upgrade awnings, things that are all part of the physical characteristics of your building conditions. Graffiti and litter removal is important. Some people consider graffiti to be art, but nevertheless, sometimes, and most times, graffiti is vandalism. And so you need to have a good plan in place that works with your public safety officials and your police to a good graffiti remediation and removal program in place. Most times graffiti folks will not damage installed artwork or other people's artwork. Okay, but still, some of your typical things that get tagged are those electrical boxes, bridge abutments, sides of bridge walls, things anywhere where there's an open space, sides of buildings. So if there's not art there, a good public art program will help deter graffiti. Complete streets usually includes bike lanes and obviously also includes public transit. And so there might be areas where you can install bike lanes. You can make those connections with bike lanes to any recreation trails that might come into your downtown and your main street. Also, public transit is important. Transit stops with shelters are important. So a lot of that needs to be inventoried, codified, and made sure that it could be part of your downtown and your main street if you have public transit. Green spaces, of course, there's a lot of odd shaped spaces that occur that we see in our downtowns. Those triangular spaces, or that space between the curb and the sidewalk where there's grass growing, or planters, flowers, trees, tree line, anywhere where you see things that could or should be landscaped. Who takes care of that? Who's responsible for that? A lot of times we don't know whether it's the building owner or the public works department or the property management companies of certain buildings. We don't know who takes care of this stuff, but it's important to inventory it, make sure that that you have a good maintenance plan for it, and somebody's caring for those spaces year round. You can't go to a downtown across America without talking about parking. Obviously, it's important to understand the type of parking you have. one of the best things that a Main Street manager can do is to inventory the parking and tell people what the parking options are. You already own it. It's already in your downtown. Don't make it a secret. Market it, whether it's surface lots, surface street spaces, or municipal garages. You should do a complete inventory of all the parking options, whether you charge for it or not, what the options are, and get the message out. Here's where you should and could park when you visit our downtown. Public art. It's important to be very inclusive with public art and look and inventory spaces where public art can be installed. It adds vibrancy, it adds color. These are things that need to be coordinated by the Main Street manager in conjunction with art organizations in the community, whether it's murals on the side of buildings, metal sculpture, art in windows. It's all on the table and should be considered. So that's a key element to any downtown management and revitalization effort and is coordinated by the Main Street manager. Good lighting is conducive not only to a sense of safety and security, but is also ties in with any public art installations. It also creates continuity. It also helps with walkability, particularly at night, obviously. And so it's always important to work with your public officials to understand the type of lighting. If there's lighting deficiencies in the areas, what can we do to make sure that lighting is improved? But it can be done very smartly and in conjunction with art organizations and in conjunction with your public works officials to make sure that there's good lighting on your streets, not just for the sake of splashing a lot of bright light in your downtown, but that it ties in, that it creates a sense of activity and safety and security. Signage and wayfinding means a lot of things to a lot of people, but to have a good, consistent wayfinding signage program is important because it lets people know where they can walk and where they need to get to from one street to another within your downtown. And it should tie in and have the same look as the overall branding and messaging of your downtown. Your signage should tie in with that. So it's not just about, this direction, this arrow, where to pay your taxes, but it's also where entertainment, shopping, where's the government center, where is the library, where's the theater. You should have some good directional signage within your downtown and good gateway signage coming into your downtown as well. These are things that can be coordinated. Plans for signage should be coordinated from the Main Street manager. And certainly window displays. Good, effective window displays in your storefronts can be viewed from across the street. The word of the day is less is more. You don't want to be the merchant that jams everything in the window that's for sale in their store, but you want to be changing it with the seasons. You want to be able to have printed signage instead of handwritten signage. They need to be professional looking and very effective, and they could be an extremely effective marketing tool. And these are things that can be coordinated with the Main Street manager, with all of the merchants in downtown and on your Main Street.
Thanks, Carl. And just a quick note on public art. This was an email exchange that we've had with the CMSC staff recently, but let's not forget about music. Live street performances of musicians is a form of art and is a fantastic way to activate your downtown through different musicians. Okay, so let's hear from Howell, Michigan, and how design plays out on their Main Street.
So as a child, I knew of Howell, and that was back in the 50s and 60s when Howell was truly an agricultural city.
Howell's come a long way over the years, and now you're starting to see young people move into town.
Over the life of the Main Street program there, they have really been able to focus on the right business mix for downtown, getting people living downtown that patronize the businesses there.
As soon as I came here, saw the community, got to meet a few of the folks, I fell in love.
Howell, I think, represents all that's best about our Michigan communities.
We
have really worked hard to preserve our past while making sure we're keeping our eyes on the future, and that is shown through the tens of millions of dollars in public and private investment that have been poured into our historic buildings.
Everything from, you know, the theater, the pub there, and putting the cornice back on the top of the buildings.
Our Howell Opera House is definitely a center of activity way back in the early 1880s. Now it still serves as a cultural center for the downtown in just a little bit of a different way.
And they're seeking grants and donations to rehab the second floor and return it into a performing arts center.
And having that in our community in conjunction with the historic Howell Movie Theater, they serve as cultural bookends.
The owners have split it into 2 screens, doing special events there. So it's nice that we retain that kind of historical look.
People come in and they know that this building has been here servicing this community in some capacity for almost 100 years. It's overwhelming.
We definitely wanted, as an entire community, to offer some sort of incentive package that would entice future businesses to preserve that past. So we offer facade grants.
We restored the original brick on the facade of the building. There was both front and rear facade that had to be done.
We've leveraged those grants quite effectively thanks to the Main Street program. Howell Main Street is right front and center on everything that we're doing.
When I first started at Main Street, the thing that spoke to me the most was how one individual can work an idea and then 10 years down the line, it's still there.
Design and EV are kind of probably their biggest focus areas, so really embracing the art culture that they have there.
We're getting calls now from the Detroit Free Press, from the Lansing area media outlets, saying what's going on, because we know Howell has a lot happening.
There's a lot of things that go into opening a business, a lot of things that I didn't know or wasn't prepared for. The DDA was great to deal with, but to have somebody like that you can bounce ideas off of and get feedback from, it's a tremendous resource.
Well, I think Main Street for Howell, they have really embraced the methodology, and it's volunteer-led. And when volunteers take ownership in that programming, they have the buy-in and they want to see it followed through.
We have a very strong volunteer base, between 400 and 500 volunteers who are really the lifeblood of the organization. We usually bring in an average of 5,000 volunteer hours per year.
It's going to keep growing. We've got new things coming in all the time. Our buildings are filling up, and it's a great place to be, and it's just going to continue to grow.
More of the same is what I'm excited about. I think Howell has a unique character, and it's grown from its farming days into what it is now.
The storefronts are filled with unique shops. The volunteer base is there to make things happen. So I think it's just the combination of everything that really puts them in the spotlight to be a Great American Main Street Award winner.
And so what did we hear from Howell, Michigan? And what do we see through the video? Huge emphasis on historic preservation in the buildings. That's a huge value of theirs. And so we saw that very clearly. Sidewalks were wide and clean and even. A lot of great green spaces and use of greenery throughout. I also saw public art and lighting, and great signage and window displays. You heard them say design was a huge point of their Main Street management program, and at least from the video, we really saw that shine through. Let's move on to the last, but certainly not least, of the 4 points, which is promotion. And promotion is all about understanding kind of the audience that you're trying to attract, and then creating the programming and communications that positions your downtown as a destination. And so with that, Carl.
Okay. One of the first questions I ask usually when I'm assessing a downtown is, have you done an attitudes and perceptions survey lately? Because doing that and conducting that survey, even if it's 5 or 6 questions, the information and the data you get from that helps you to formulate your marketing, branding direction for your downtown. And it helps you get your downtown positioned for, how you're going to brand it, who's your target audience. And so things periodically, having an attitudes and perception survey, maybe every couple of years, but some of that data, would you consider living in your downtown? Would you consider, what would make you come back and visit? What would you like to see in the way of shopping or dining options for your downtown? Those are the types of information, that kind of data helps you develop and brand properly and position your downtown for the future. So, you know, branding and positioning is very, very important. You want to develop your logo. You want to develop, if you have a slogan, make sure you get it out there. All your printed and digital materials should have a consistent look, and it should transfer over to anything that you're doing with your web design, your social media. It should all tie in as far as look, color, use of photography, typography. Everything should be consistent across all media strands. And obviously, having decent retail promotions.
Wait, Carl?
Yes.
I just want to, on the branding and positioning, I just want to do a quick plug. Downtown Bridgeport, they have, I think, one of the strongest branding programs here in the state. And their slogan is "We are colorful." And so I strongly recommend that if anyone's really interested in like what does a downtown branding program look like and how does it stay consistent across, you know, website, social, physical signage in their downtown, please check out Bridgeport.
Yes. Certainly retail promotions is important. So anything you can do to highlight the businesses on Main Street, whether you're doing it specifically for just the bars and the restaurants and the lunch places and fine dining, you know, put together a restaurant guide, even have it with a QR code to scan it, show the menus, help prop up your restaurants and dining establishments, but even your other retailers, your mom and pop shops, anybody that's created a makerspace in your downtown. You should have plan events and do things that can tie in and promote your retail on Main Street. And then special events. And I think special events could be both events put on by the town or the city. Most of those are always centered in your downtown, but any events that your organization, you as the Main Street manager, may want to put events on in downtown or on your Main Street, and they may be fundraising events to raise money for your organization, but they should all be centered around showcasing and highlighting the options, opportunities, differentiators, and cool places and spaces that are in your downtown. Important thing to know about events and event coordination from the Main Street manager's perspective: good, sustainable practices, which means you should have a good system in place that's good planning and promotion for the event weeks, months in advance, okay? And a good strategy for the planning process. Just as important, when the event is over, there should be a good wrap-up type planning process and meetings. What worked? What didn't work? What could we do better for next year? Are we going to do the event next year? What do we need to make the event better and better? So to bookend the event with a good planning strategy at the front end and a good wrap-up strategy at the back end is extremely important. But then those events can help bring more and more people, hundreds if not thousands of people, into your downtown.
And just a quick plug for Carl. Carl's a wealth of knowledge and experience and wisdom of putting on retail promotions and special events. So if this is a strategy that your community is using, definitely reach out to Carl. He has a lot of great battle wounds and can to share kind of best practices for sure. Thanks, Carl. So let's watch our last video here from Hammond, Louisiana, and hear how events are a huge part of their promotion.
When people come into our community and you engage and you welcome them, you know, we're South Louisiana, we hug. we want you in our community.
I think people come to Hammond and stay in Hammond because they can feel the love that Main Street has for Main Street.
The quality of life, I feel like it's been a best kept secret. We have just a wonderful little city.
When we first moved here when I was 12, there was not a lot going on in downtown, and then it actually got worse. There was a Penny's downtown and a dollar store downtown, and all those things moved away to the mall.
and so there was nothing.
Hammond was one of the first 4 Main Street communities in Louisiana when it started in 1984. And since that time, they've been very forward-thinking in everything they do. They've been early adopters of anything that could be beneficial to their downtown. In Hammond's case, it's really been due to the local people.
Well, I like the fact that there's more family-oriented things, like today, the Arts in Bloom Festival. It's a way for the community to come out and interact in different places because we love Luma Coffee, you know, that's our coffee place. And hey guys.
And the food's crazy, man. There's multiple restaurants. People come from out of town just to get away from their normal surroundings, have a great meal, enjoy a walk around downtown, and then it's an attraction. It's a destination is what Hammond has become, and we're just so proud of it.
I'm so lucky to be part of the downtown. We have 2 or 3 festivals and things going on a year, and that helps to bring a lot of new people in town. And once when they come the first time, they keep coming every year, and that helps a lot to everybody.
With the inclusion of also having local artists set up at stores, the wine walks, things like that, music like the Blues and Barbecue Festival we just had. I was here for the first Hot August nights, and that along with the Starry November nights have been really, really big business, especially with the Columbia Theater opening back up. Those are our really good selling points to get people here in town.
Hammond Main Street actually stepped in days before the Columbia Theater was gonna meet the wrecking ball, and we saved it. We acquired funding and used tax dollars to help renovate that building, and we actually donated it back to Southeastern. I think for us, that's the biggest example of historic preservation. A lot of towns have a lot of good theaters, but you haven't been to the Columbia Theater. It's a gem.
That was another thing, bringing living spaces down here, not just businesses. There was this big turn and twist, and it was a little slow going initially, but it really has been worth it. So worth it.
It is a small-time vibe in a big city. We're 45 minutes from New Orleans, but we live in just a small pocket of Louisiana, and it's Hammond, America. It's wonderful. If you know it, you live it. That's what I feel for Hammond, America.
Railroad Park was a very sad public space. There was lots of potholes, the grass was very overgrown, wasn't accessible for all people, and through lots of public input sessions we came up with Railroad Park. It looks like Hammond and it feels like Hammond, even though it's new, which is why I love it. And it's another people-centered place that we're developing to get people out and about and to make them appreciate town.
We're not finished. There's always another spot that we can help focus someone on. Maybe your business can go here. Truly, I found that when people feel the sense of you wanting them to be there, they're coming.
I think you can very much tell when you go into a community that's a Main Street community. You recognize that something is different about this downtown, that this community cares about their downtown, and that they want it to be successful. The general people may not know what that is, but if anybody knows Main Street and knows what Main Street is about, they would recognize that, oh, this community must have a Main Street organization in it.
I absolutely love that story about Hammond. I mean, it's so clear their brand just shines through everything that they do of being welcoming and inclusive, and they really rely on those retail promotions and special events to create, you know, this great atmosphere here. And I really hope that all these videos that we saw, you heard the overlapping of the 4 points. And that you saw a little bit of your community. You know, the majority of all these videos, there's that story of downtown was great at one point and then went through kind of a decline, and then through a Main Street program really has been able to revitalize. And so we hope that you see your community in these stories and are inspired to, you know, really take up this Main Street management model, and to follow the 4 points, to see your downtown transform. And so, these are the 4 points that we talked about. We have organization, economic vitality, design, and promotion. And so, where do we go from here? Right. So, as we mentioned, organization is the absolute bedrock for everything that we do. So, it doesn't have to start immediately as a separate 501c3. It could start as a dedicated commission, maybe a municipal employee or a volunteer committee. But it's a dedicated group that one champion, right, is really critical to getting this started. If you are a Connecticut Main Street member and you haven't gotten your Main Street Management Assessment yet, please reach out to Carl. In that assessment, he goes through everything in detail and really gives you the playbook and recommendations on where you should put your focus and attention on first. And if you don't already have one, that strategic plan is really critical to set out that vision, to create a vision and strategic plan that's based on your inventories, a SWOT analysis, and your Main Street Management Assessment that we give you. And from there, you create that work plan to put it into action. And so, if you need help or assistance with any of this part, please reach out to us. And one of the biggest things for you to remember is that none of this happens overnight. Incremental changes over a consistent period of time is really what will change and move the needle in your community. So start small and build momentum. And if your community is in that position where you just need a little extra push to get things going, or accountability, or a framework, definitely apply to our second cohort of Main Street Accelerator. That will kick off this December and really be the bulk of the program next calendar year. And to learn more about that, we have our information session coming up in September, and you'll see that plug here in a little bit. So I want to open up time for questions here, but we have a lot coming up. So just want to get through our announcements, but please start typing in the chat any questions that you might have, and we'll get to them in a moment. So if you're not a member of our network, we encourage you to join the 80+ communities around the state that are really investing in their Main Street. And as a member, you get exclusive technical assistance and resources to guide you in your day-to-day effort. And you can learn more about that at ctmainstreet.org. Coming up, we have some really great webinars. Next month, we have our use EV stations to drive traffic to Main Street with charge deals. That will be August 8th. That's a really cool program. If you have electric vehicle stations in your downtown, you don't want to miss this. Then we're going to be talking about the platform Civic Lift and how this platform can help you promote your community, your events, your brand, your assets. So definitely don't want to miss that one. And then, as I mentioned, our Main Street Accelerator program information session is coming up September 19th. That is when we'll go into depth about the program, learn how to apply. We're really proud of this program. We've done it 1 year so far, and it has been a tremendous success. And the communities that have gone through the program have nothing but really strong positive feedback for it. So if you're looking to galvanize your community together around your Main Street, please check out the Main Street Accelerator program. And lastly, you can actually see the Main Street Accelerator program in action at our next Spotlight on Main in Georgetown event. Georgetown participated in Main Street Accelerator, and they're going to be talking about that. But it's a cute little downtown that is all volunteer led, and they're doing an amazing, amazing job. So definitely want to check that out. And so with that, we thank all of our sponsors again. When you exit this webinar, you'll be prompted to fill out an evaluation. Please give us your thoughts. It really helps us shape our programming. And with that, I want to open up for a few minutes of questions. Thank you guys for staying on past our time. Any questions? If not, we'll sign off here. You can always reach out to us. We're here to be of assistance. And with that, have a great rest of your day. Take care, everyone. And thanks, Carl, for everything.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Vance.
Thank you.